In this video, we will show you how to install a jumper and an actuator on a 2-configuration damper setup. To complete this installation, you will need a 3/16 ratchet and a 10mm ratchet. We will begin with a jumper installation. Begin by loosening the nuts on the U-bolts of each damper using a 3/16 ratchet. Once the U-bolts are loosened, remove them by hand. Slightly open each damper so the U-bolts are accessible to hold in place. While holding the U-bolt in position, begin installing the jumper by partially screwing the nut into place. Once the jumper is loosely affixed to the damper on one side, proceed with attaching the jumper to the other damper in the same fashion. Once the jumper is loosely installed to each damper, using a 3/16 ratchet, proceed with tightening the nut bolts in a rotation to maintain a symmetrical install so that the jumper is as center between the two dampers as possible. Ensure the nuts are evenly tightened. Now that the jumper is installed, proceed with installing the actuator. In order to install the actuator, begin by slightly loosening the nuts on the U-bolts using a 3/16 ratchet. Once the drive rod is loose enough to pull out, gently pull it out 4.5 inches from the frame of the damper. Avoid pulling the drive rod out too far. Once the drive rod is 4.5 inches from the frame, using a 3/16 ratchet, evenly tighten the U-bolts. Ensure the drive rod sits firmly in place. Today we are using a TAMCO motor mounting bracket. Hold the bearings of the bracket in place when sliding the bracket onto the drive rod. The motor mounting bracket will rest firmly within the damper frame, where, as you can see, the actuator will rest within. Ensure the damper blades are open to a 90-degree angle and wind the actuator up to a matching 90-degree angle and lock it in place. Begin by using your hands to evenly tighten the nuts on the actuator so that it sits in place on the damper drive rod. Ensure that the actuator is sitting flat along the damper frame and in proper position on the drive rod. Finish evenly tightening the nuts on the actuator using a 10mm ratchet. Ensure that the damper blades are still at a matching 90-degree angle and have not moved during the installation process. Once the actuator is firmly affixed to the drive rod, unlock the damper and inspect that the blades are evenly closing on each damper. Check that each blade has a firm seal once closed. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for choosing TAMCO.